The flame that Giuliani lit with those lies and passed to so many others to keep that flame blazing changed every aspect of our lives.
I miss my home, I miss my neighbors, and I miss my name.
The absurdity of the number merely underscores the absurdity of the entire proceeding, where I've not been allowed to offer one single piece of evidence in defense, which I have a lot.
That was former Georgia election workers Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman reacting to the $148 million verdict against Rudy Giuliani for defamation, and Giuliani attacking the ruling, insisting that he has evidence which simply does not exist. Let's bring in the roundtable former DNC chair Donna Brazile, former RNC chair and Trump White House chief of staff Reince Priebus, ABC News deputy political director Avery Harper, and Politico national investigative correspondent Heidi Przybyla. So, Reince, let's start. We'll get to Rudy and all that, but let's start with Nikki Haley.
No.
I promise you, we'll get there. So Nikki Haley, big endorsement. She's getting the money. You heard her there. Is there a chance?
Well, I mean, there's always a chance, but the reality is that at this point, you could see in the interview, she's trying to walk a fine line between not being too much anti-Trump, because the reality is Trump is sitting nationally at, plus 50. In New Hampshire, he's about plus 30. So she has to figure out a way to prosecute her case in New Hampshire without alienating the rest of the country coming her way on Super Tuesday a few weeks after. The reality is that the Trump operation right now is making it very clear. If they win by plus 10 in Iowa, they're going to say, we're the presumptive nominee. They're going to lay that groundwork. And then if they win New Hampshire by plus 10, they're going to demand to be declared the presumptive nominee. And the pressure on the party, if that was to happen, I think would be just enormous, and I don't think they'd be able to withstand that.
I mean, if he wins both those states, he goes to South Carolina. She's the former governor, but he's got maybe his biggest lead there of any of the early
It's
states.
over if that happens.
What was your reaction hearing her navigate criticizing Trump, praising Trump? What did you make?
Well, I think, look, I've watched all of the Republican debates. I'm probably one of maybe 2 Americans that have found these debates to be very interesting because on one hand...
I found them kind of interesting.
Well, they're interesting because Donald Trump has remained the front runner. Yeah. And the reason why is because none of them have the guts or the gall to say what they are privately saying to each other and to their friends and maybe their family, that he is unfit for office. Only Chris Christie has shown some courage in saying that. What the governor tried to do today was just try to go down the middle and say, well, I like this, but I don't like that. Well, her biggest argument during that interview was that I'm electable, but how? I mean, if you cannot point out your differences with the front runner, then I don't think you have a strategy to win. After all, he controls the Republican Party. He controls the MAGA movement. He's in charge. And if you're not willing to say that I disagree with him that immigrants poison the blood of the country, or, I disagree with him on the election results. If you're not willing to disagree and point out your own vision, then I don't think you are electable.
Because I asked her about that extraordinary thing that she said after January 6th to Tim Alberta, Politico, then with Politico, saying that we never should have followed him. We must never follow him again. And she said she stands by that. But then the next breath said he was the right president for the right time.
She's being very cautious. And in the meantime, 2016 is calling and it wants its narrative back, which is that this field, this non-Trump field, is not consolidating. And the thing that's perplexing about it is it seems like, Jonathan, that's what some of these voters want. That voter who stood up and confronted her at the town hall, he wanted her to tell the American people, like Donna says, how they talk in private, which is that Trump has exhibited authoritarian ideations, that he has talked openly or mused about being president for life, that many people, even Republicans, will privately tell you that this was a failed coup. And there's also this math problem, which is this field is not consolidating in a number of states, but in New Hampshire, if she does not pull this out in New Hampshire, it's really hard to see how it's over. And the way to do that is for Chris Christie and DeSantis voters to move over to her. It's not to play to those hardcore Trump voters.
And Avery, Trump was in New Hampshire, and he was quoting Vladimir Putin last night.
Right, he definitely was.
As an authoritative source on analyzing his legal cases.
Right. He has really had this real intense flirtation with authoritarian leaders. He has spoken to and echoed back to lines that have to do with Hitler, right? And I want to pay attention to what he said. He spoke about migrants from South America. He spoke about migrants from Africa. He spoke about migrants from Asia. He did not speak about migrants or immigrants from Europe, right?
Right.
And
poisoning the blood was the phrase he used,
right,
which is obviously an incredibly loaded phrase, like the vermin phrase, the word that he used.
And this is rhetoric that he continues to use on the trail. He has said this before. He's probably going to say it again. It is something that is reminiscent of white nationalist language. And he is calling to dark parts of the Republican Party when he does this. And that's not something that folks are going to forget come general election time.
I mean, Reince, I remember you as RNC chair kind of fighting so hard to get him to condemn David Duke when David Duke endorsed him. And I remember you in the White House trying to, keep him within the guardrails. Do you worry that, as he rushes towards this nomination, that he's going off into those places that you tried to keep him from going?
Not particularly, because I think you're all misreading the electorate. I think that the electorate is not looking for less blood. I think they're looking for more blood. I think that people are more angry about crime than they've ever been before. I think they're more angry about the border, the fentanyl, the sanctuary cities, the boys competing against girls in sports, schools out of control. I think, as I've said before, people are looking for a bigger middle finger this time than they were in 2016, and I think...
So no matter how outrageous...
You're misreading this. People are angry. And on the other side, you got President Biden, who's losing young voters, who's losing black voters. The polling couldn't be worse. And unlike Barack Obama in 2011, Democrats would have walked over glass for Barack Obama. Democrats today, they say 75%, we wish we had a different candidate. So it matters who you're running against, too. And it also matters what the state of the country's in. And this is a perfect storm.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say this. You're talking about taking millions of people off their health care, which is Donald Trump. He has pledged to do that. That's blood. That is blood. You're talking about suspending the United States Constitution, something that Donald Trump has said. Yeah, look, I get the anger part. I get the people who are frustrated with crime. I get the fact that the border need more agents, need more
Democrats
technology.
are suing the White House.
More technology. But you know what I don't get? I don't get the fact that you're willing to stand up for someone who's praising dictators.
Listen, I'm not willing to stand up.
Who is hungry to get back with Kim Jong-un.
What I'm doing here, Donna, is I am telling you what the reality on the ground is. And there's 100,000 people in 5 states that are going to decide this election. And if you can convince me that those 100,000 people are worried about Donald Trump suspending the Constitution,
even though he has said that on multiple occasions.
But you have to be able to convince people that are voting that he
means what he says.
Well, then, if that's what your case is, sure. But if you really think that, it's not going to...
that this president. The president, you say that Democrats will not walk on glass. Well, they'll go through fire to protect the Constitution.
We'll see.
They will go through fire to defend
How far they're going through fire to see if they can get someone else to run.
The flirting of black voters with Donald Trump, it is just that.
Well, then look at your own polls.
All right, let's go to Heidi. I like the chairman versus chair. This is good. But go ahead, Heidi.
Reince is right that Trump is playing here. He's playing on emotions. He's convincing people that we are living in a state of American carnage, as he said when he first took office, that there is this risk of a dystopian United States of America where Judeo-Christian values and Christians are huddled, cold and hungry in a corner and persecuted. But it's an alternative America that Democrats say is based on misconceptions, is based on lies in some regards. There's absolutely a case here on numbers, on crime. You can have a debate about that and how you define crime versus homicide versus gun shootings. It's all how you slice it. They're also not being given information about why costs are higher in inflation, and the fact that, putting this in perspective, overseas, the inflation here is relatively more modest. There's no context in this debate, and I think that's... So I'm agreeing with both of you, right? Here's what's happening.
I think there's something else that Reince has hit on that is clearly out there, and that is deep, deep Democratic discontent with Biden and fears about whether or not he is up to it.
Right.
And not that he's not up to doing the job, but that he's up to a campaign against Donald Trump and that he can beat him.
Right. There are concerns about whether Biden is going to be out on the trail. There are concerns about certain issues, whether he is going to be able to meet the moment. There are concerns about whether he's going to be able to turn out young voters, black voters. Right. When we talk about immigration and the ongoing negotiations for supplemental funding, there are concerns that he could be perceived as siding with Republicans on this issue, something that would be an affront to what he promised on the campaign trail back in 2020, that he was going to transform the immigration system with humanity and a focus on American values. If he is seen as siding with not only Republicans, but far-right Republicans on this issue, that could be damaging to his credibility as he goes out on the trail as well.
So we don't have a lot of time left. I've got to get back to, as I promised, back to Rudy Giuliani. We heard from Shea Moss and Ruby Freeman. Yeah. Donna, that verdict, I mean, to me, you know, watching that whole episode and the way they were, you know, accused of these terrible things that were not true. And what was your sense hearing that verdict?
Now, you want to hear emotion? Yeah. That's emotion. It's not the money. The money will never give them their name back. The fact that they will spend the rest of their lives, no matter how much money, worried about who might be coming after them. What Rudy did was so damaging to not just the democracy, the institution, but he damaged two innocent people doing their job. They used to love to go and be poll watchers and poll workers because that's what many Americans do. And now he has put a stain on that process.
And are they going to see anything out of this? I mean, by the way, we saw something else, I think it was this morning. 4 Seasons Total Landscaping, remember?
Yeah.
Hosted the Rudy Giuliani press conference after the election. They said that they have not been paid for renting the lectern and the various things. So I don't know.
It's not just about Ruby Freeman and Shea Moss.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers. Since 2016, since 2020 especially, we're seeing a historic drop-off in individuals who want to perform this historic public service of overseeing elections and volunteering. There was violence. I stood outside the Detroit TCF Center. People were scared to go in there. There was actual violence taking place.
Well, I agree with Donna. I mean, it's a punitive decision. It's a statement case. I'm not defending anything that Rudy did or said. I certainly wouldn't. But I think that this issue with poll workers and poll watchers is serious. I agree with you. We need people to feel good about volunteering. I remember back in Wisconsin, there was a Milwaukee Police Department report, about 70 pages, describing all the challenges in regard to conducting these elections. So they deserve our respect, and certainly we can't move forward without it.
And I'll say there's definitely a hope on the part of elections workers that this is a massive deterrent to folks interfering with the job that they do. That is essential to the functioning of democracy. We've seen 12 states since 2020. They have passed.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you all for being here this morning.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.